Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Maybe I was a bit early there. Welcome to the third. Welcome back to Last of Us, the third episode spoilers review. Well, I did the intro, and for some reason, on the right behind the walls, it says the end broadcast. That means we're live. But then when I looked on our screen, it didn't say live. So I don't know if they were live for that. Who knows? But here we are. I am the freshly showered Travis Snell, and I'm joined by.
I'm the old man, Kirklin Patzer.
And then Mark Astrodilmas.
I'm the What Are Seatbelts, Taylor Field.
Yes, as I said, we are here every week for the next, I guess we got 6 more weeks now of Last of Us reviewing this episode, this series, so you can go back and check out the other ones and everything like that. So we'll do a non-spoilers little section, then we'll get in the full episode. Taylor, where can they find everything we do? Because we got a lot of stuff going on this week.
Ladies and gentlemen, you can find us with your internet connection in the search bar. GeekVerse.ca is our home base. GeekVerse is our Twitter. GeekVerse is our Facebook.
Why do I even pick up my phone to promote the show? Why do I even try to tweet out the link? This man is just
Speed ran it.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, like Taylor said, you can do all that. This week should be fun. Me and Kirklin are going to be reviewing the newest Shyamalan movie happening this Friday. And is it A Knock at the Cabin? The Knock at the Cabin? Whatever. Someone's Knock at the Cabin.
movie.
Multiple knocks.
And Batista's in it. That's all that matters to me, you know? So we got that going on. There's going to be a side quest. Dylan and Taylor are going to be reviewing the Xbox Showcase. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah. I'm very excited to talk about that. A lot of juicy stuff in there.
There you go. Bring on the juice. And then at some point this week, we do not know when there'll be a DC cast when they drop the slate. Don't know if it's either tomorrow or Tuesday. Hence why I was asking you guys when you do side quests, because if it's side quests, then we'd probably do it after on a Monday. If it's Tuesday, it's probably going to be like I've said before, like 11:59 on Tuesday. And Jim's going to be, look how funny I am. And then I'm going to be able to fucking cast about to Wednesday. And it hurts our CEO. But you know what? That's okay. But the good thing, HBO every Sunday, dropping it at the exact same time.
6 p.m. on the dot. It's so nice.
Yeah, a midnight cast for the DC slate. No, I think we'll all be asleep at that point. But here we are to talk about Last of Us. Let's start with Mr. Muss. What do you think about this episode?
Oh, my God. What a fucking episode. I was just bawling my eyes out. This was a very powerful and intense and emotional episode. A beautiful episode, a traumatic episode. Oh, love it. By far the best episode for me so far, even though it's kind of a bit different than what the other things have been. But yeah, I was not expecting this detour, I'll say, and I'm glad we got it. And I don't really want to say too much more on the non-spoiler side of things, but really just amazing performances and just beautiful. Loved it so much.
Kirk Patzer.
He's very still.
He's
like
thinking
a
about Dylan's
statue.
thoughts. He's thinking about Dylan's thoughts. Taylor, let's see what you got to think.
Check out the video, ladies and gentlemen. You got to check out the video. So, what did I think on this episode? I thought it was absolutely fantastic. There was probably one moment which I thought was a little off. Only it was only off, I think, solely because oh my goodness. I don't know if this is a spoiler, but there's points of time throughout this episode. And I think choosing between two different points of time, I think that's what kind of made what they were trying to go for a little bit off-putting for me. But I understand what they were going for with it, because I was trying to come to my own kind of realization, well, I don't know if I can really trust the situation or what's going on. But then it turns into something through shortly after and through the whole rest of the episode, I was so emotionally invested in what was going on, and it was really, really full of attachment. To me, I felt like this is one of the earlier on Walking Dead episodes, just with how dramatic it was, how powerful it was, and I really like that. So I think that this episode knocked it out of the park in a way that I was not expecting at whatsoever. I just think it was incredible, and I like how it unfolded with this story and how we got from the start to the end and in this episode. If honestly, you mentioned earlier, brace yourselves, is going to be premiere length, and I felt like this was a whole movie in its own self with what we got, and it was definitely a good time. So
yeah, so it's funny because I've seen the reaction I hear Dylan. I liked it a lot. I'm not as high as many people, but I don't have it's not because I'm not high on because I have these critiques. I really don't have any other than one thing they kept doing with Joel, which I kept laughing in this episode. I'll bring up. It was just very comedic of like, I don't know. I don't know what they're trying. It's just funny. I'll bring it up in spoilers, but I got a good gag. And it's nothing even big. And that's a great thing. So far, we're 3 episodes deep, and any cons are always pretty minor and stuff like that. And I'd been warned before, like it's a major departure from the games, and it is. But that's not anything that really bothered me. It's just, I'm very interested because The Last of Us. I'd told this, or I've been told this, that The Last of Us podcast that Troy Baker hosts. I didn't listen to 1 or 2, but they said, I guess last week they explained why a lot of the changes happened, and I didn't really care about the changes they did. Okay, that's fine. This week I'm definitely gonna be listening because I'm interested, and I'll be interested to talk to you guys in spoilers when we get there. But no, I enjoyed it. I think it's nice own kind of mini movie. It feels very much like, to me, obviously it's bookend by some stuff, but it feels very much like a Black Mirror episode, not in the trippy way, but it reminds me of that, where there's a moral message and there's a greater thing going on, but it's about this specific story, these specific characters. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think I go back to the James Cameron quote of when he's talking about Avatar and talking about like the whale scene in the newest one where they're hunting and everything, and he talks about like, oh well, people tell me all the time like this doesn't need to be in the movie, but it's like what needs to be in a movie. And that's what I felt about this, where it's like, I don't know if this story is needed for the show. I don't know what it does anything going forward that we don't already have. But I think it's a great episode by itself, So it's one of those, like, I don't feel like, oh, it's a waste of a week. It's just kind of, okay, this episode happened. You can watch it for its own merit, but I don't think you'd really need to watch for the rest of the show. So that's an interesting kind of concept of like, you're kind of doing a solo episode, it feels like an anthology episode in a show that's episodic. So I liked it a lot. I have really no cons. I'm excited to talk about some of the changes, but I think that's just it, that I enjoyed it, but not as much as many other people. But performances are great. I will say I was worried about Nick Offerman. I luckily didn't see him in the role because just the things I've seen, I just feel like, oh, when I see him, I'm just going to see Nick Offerman. And the first 15 minutes I did. I was like, okay, it's just, I can't connect that I can't get into this is Bill. This is the new character. Like the way Pedro turns into Joel, but then eventually it did. So yeah, it's the creators and company, they did everything. They're doing everything right with this show. So, and none of the changes bothered me. It's more just okay, that's an interesting choice. So, Kirklin Patzer, you are back now.
I'm back. Yes,
we threw to you, and you have to watch video, and we're just watching because you look like you're about to speak. You're by the microphone.
I'm like ready to jump in. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
thanks for waiting, and I apologize if I repeat anything that you guys said, but yeah, out the hot, man. This is by far my favorite episode of the show so far. I was so blown away about, like you said just now, Travis, like it's self-contained movie, and that's really much what it was. Because as I was watching it, I don't know, like I think a certain character or characters, they popped in my head, and I'm like, oh yeah, what are they doing right now? But at the same time, I'm like, I don't even care because what I'm getting right now, this is just so perfect. Like Dylan, you mentioned earlier, like I was like ugly crying in this episode, and I was not expecting that. This like it totally hit me right in the heartstrings and had so much, just like good moral messages and just like appreciating what you got and like all that stuff. It just delivered so well, and yeah, I was such a mess by this episode, but at the same time, like it was so happy at times, super wholesome, and very like had a lot of peril in it as well. Like it was a perfect little blend to be its own like self-contained episode. And although like maybe I didn't get so much story stuff or I don't know other plot points that maybe I'd want coming into the episode, I'm completely fine by it because what I got, it was just a perfect little cake to have on this nice Sunday evening. And yeah, I mean, they kind of bamboozled me here and there. I'm excited to get into spoilers. I'll explain what that was, but yeah, I think this was a perfect episode. I think it was fantastic, and I'm excited to talk like differences for the games because I definitely have some questions for Travis on that regard. Because when I played the game, I never even got to meet Bill or Frank or any of these other characters that were in it, so I'm excited to talk about that. But yeah, I thought this was fantastic. Hope it keeps coming.
There we go. So everyone's saying good things about the episode. Go watch if you haven't seen it. Come back if you have. Buckle up. We're about to take our first ad break, and then we'll be right back. Okay, we are back, so we are into spoilers, and it is good because most of the time, if you've played the game and whatnot, you might be like, oh, well, spoilers doesn't matter, I've seen it, but this big change up. So I'll give you guys the setup of what happens in the game. So the game, you're Joel and Ellie, you meet Bill. Bill and Frank are a couple. When you meet Bill, he is alone because Frank has left him because he's sick and tired of, he's been living with him through this apocalypse, and he can't take Bill's shit anymore. And they kind of hinted that when they got in that fight in that episode. He's like, you're a 9/11 conspiracy guy, and you think the government's a Nazi. Like, it's that in the game. But then what happens is later on, as Joel and Ellie, you find Frank, because what happens is he leaves them. He's going to go to Boston, live with other people. On the way to Boston, he gets bit, so then he kills himself. So the end point of the story is still the same, but he kills himself. And then when you find Frank, there's a note on him. It says, "Tell Bill that I hate his guts." And then you can choose to give that note to Frank or to Bill or not. And that's the story. So it's the complete opposite. End result's same, that Frank does kill himself, but it's a much more different message as far as the kind of, this is showing, hey, in Apocalypse, these two were together, and it tore them apart because it was just them alone, where this was like the strength in their relationship. And this is why I'm interested to listen to that podcast. I don't know if it drops right away or tomorrow or whatnot, because I want to know why the changes were done in this one, because this is the most like massive change. All the other stuff, like, oh, the spores being like, fuck, please, websites, please stop running articles. Oh, the spores might be in season 2. It's such like a gamer thing. Why do people care if the spores are in it? Like, it's just like, it's fucking dust in there. Who cares if the spores are in it? Like, people are like, they changed this, but this is a big change. But like, Bill's just like a minor character that kind of gets you to and from location. Like, obviously you don't get this big cutout and everything. And I feel like I'm interested, but I wonder, because the second game, Neil was just the only director. The first game, it was Neil and another guy. And I'm very curious of like, I wonder if these like are some of the other guys' choices, and he's like, I'd go the other way, because this episode, the way how it just broke away from the story, this isn't a big spoiler, but like in Last of Us Part 2, it does that a lot, where you're with Joel and Ellie and then you break away for a different story for like a little while and everything like that. So this felt very Neil Druckmann Last of Us Part 2. Luckily for him, I think this is going to be received a lot better than some of the stuff that happened in Last of Us 2, so that gives me happiness for that. But yeah, that's like the general meat and potatoes of the story in the game.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, because we had like a whole episode centered around these characters, I'm like, I don't imagine that you played as one of them for like a stretch of the game. So I very much feel like this is, told for the HBO special, which,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I love that, just that story between these two. Like, I got to experience their entire lives essentially during the apocalypse, and for that reason, like, I just felt so much more attached to them. And like by the end of it, that's why I was just like ugly crying, because okay, I said goodbye to Tess last episode, and I guess it was sad, but like I didn't really have a lot of moments to like see her dynamic between her and Joel. And I do like the actress playing Tess and like her performance, and she even popped in here as well, so that makes me hopeful that I'll get more flashbacks of Tess and just like that character even more. Post-mortem, like after she's already been gone, I'll learn to appreciate that character more. But yeah, like, because I had over an hour with these two, like I was so attached and like so invested in their lives. I could obviously see like a partner dynamic between them two. Like by the end of it, like, you're kind of posing the question on yourself, where it's like, what would I do in that situation? And I feel like I probably would have done the same, especially if I was old like that. Like, I'd have to say to the only person you've been living with the whole time, someone that you just grew to love. Like, it was just so. Yeah, it was so tragic, but again, happy at the same time. So yeah, man, I loved what that story was, and I was not expecting that at all coming into this episode. I mentioned I was bamboozled. It was because in the preview, I saw Joel talking to Bill, so I'm like, oh, Joel's gonna meet Bill, and that's gonna happen. But it was in a fucking flashback, so they totally got me there. And I mean, give them credit, because I was expecting to see Nick Offerman multiple times throughout this show. I didn't like look into how many episodes he was appearing or anything like that. I was excited to get him. And like you said, Travis, like, you didn't see Nick Offerman or like Ron Swanson, like how he plays in Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I'm like, oh man, there's gonna be fan theories on why that character is the same, just because like he's very like anti-government in Parks and Rec. He's like a prepper and all that stuff. But no, he totally brought his A game to portray the character of Bill. And give him credit, because when he was getting emotional, all like the little moments, whether he's making himself vulnerable for the sake of Frank and just being like a good partner there, it was, man, chef's kiss. It was so good. And shout out to the character, or the actor that played Frank as well. I really liked him. And I said a lot there. I'll pass it along.
Murray Bartlett, who I mean, I've just seen him recently in White Lotus, and he was fantastic in that. A very different character. He's very just like unhinged and crazy in that, but it's an amazing performance. I was so happy to see him in here. It was cool to see him. He's having a good year. Another role, amazing year for TV. So I'm curious to see where he's gonna go, because I don't recognize him from elsewhere. But yeah, I'm thinking about that now that you mention it, Travis. Like, because I just once again know the kind of the spark notes of the story, and I know in the game that they were never like in the same place, the two characters. So I'm glad that you could give that recap, and I wonder if there's kind of maybe two theories off the top of my head of why they would try and change this kind of thing. I feel like one of them is you're mentioning that final moment where you can choose to give the note back or not. That's like a really big player decision, but maybe something like that when they were, whether they're just in the writing phase or later, who knows. But I feel like maybe they would see like, okay, this doesn't have as much impact if the if the controller's not in the person's hand for them to make that kind of decision one way or the other. So that could be one reason that they do it. I wonder another thing too is maybe they just, when they're writing this, they were like, okay, you know what? Actually, we want to give maybe once again in flashback situation. Once again, first episode has like, back in the 2000s time, and then we get flashbacks in the previous episode. But I wonder if maybe they were just trying that out. Like, let's write some scenes between these characters together and show people that. And then when they were doing that process, maybe they were just like, okay, we're really liking this. Let's keep going with this. And then they ended up building so much of a bond with those characters now that less of it's kind of implied like it seems to be in the game, and more of it is like you're actually seeing the chemistry between it. And then I'm sure when they picture like, oh, who the actors doing this thing, like maybe it just kind of kept bubbling up like that into a point where they're like, okay, let's go with this different ending because we can do that. We can have that emotional payoff. That the game, I mean, maybe they just didn't think about that back in the day with the game, and who knows, but it's interesting to think about why they would change something like that.
Well, the other thing I'm interested to hear too, I wonder, like, since Last of Us the game and since the show, we have gone through a pandemic, and they talk like Joel and Ellie in the beginning of the episode talk about a pandemic, like very much like you can tell it's COVID based, right? Of like, oh, a government wouldn't fumble a pandemic, like Ellie says that jokingly, right? And I feel like maybe they're trying to do this in a way of showing, okay, there's been so much negative stuff that has happened the past few years because of that. I'd rather tell a positive story in the pandemic, and like, okay, because that's their exact opposite, right? As these two characters are together and they grow to hate each other, right? Where this is, I don't want to do that. I will, and it's a very similar thing where it's different writers and whatnot. But that's when we got the newest Matrix sequel. The third Matrix ended in a very dire situation, and the writer the whole time when the director said, you know what, I kind of regret that. I kind of wanted the characters to be a bit happier, and that's why with Matrix 4 they had a second chance at it per se, like, you know what, I'm going to give them a happy ending this time. And I wonder if it's kind of like that, just things have changed and people change. The same thing as like just certain character arcs nowadays that I go, oh, maybe back in the day I would have been but now it's like, you know what, redemption, love, those are the things that like you fight for and are important stuff. So I'm very curious, to see, or they just got Nick Offerman, like, well, we can't have him in a flashback, we got to give him a whole episode. He's fantastic. So, and I haven't watched another show people have been shouting out tonight, is a show called Devs as well, which I hear is really good. So he's having a nice little resume too of just like stellar performances. So what about you, Taylor? Now that we're in spoilers, what do you think about, they tricked us, because I thought, man, no flashback this week, because both episodes open with flashback. I'm like, oh, there's gonna be no flashback, and then no, there was the double that the opening was the present day stuff and the episode was the flashback.
Yeah, this I'm kind of like you, Kirkland. I thought like, okay, we're gonna be getting Bill with Joel throughout this episode, or at least he'll be coming back in the future. I've not gotten this far in the game, so I didn't know anything about Bill and Frank and just the kind of the fallout here of what takes place. So as far as I knew, this is the storyline that they adapted from the games. So it's cool to know that different perspective and that they changed it. And I definitely like this one a lot more than them hating each other in the games. But yeah, I think that for the most part, seeing Bill's character, I totally just felt like, okay, this is Ron Swanson. I really, really did. I did not see much of a difference except for some of even some of the emotional moments. But then again, I feel like he acts that emotionally compassionate towards other characters in Parks and Rec. So I just felt like he was very much that, but he does it in a very good job. And I don't feel like it's him necessarily being limited to just, this is the kind of role that I'm limited to playing. I think it was just the way that they wrote the character and said, hey, we need you to do this because you're the best kind of guy out there that can play this kind of a character. We need you to do this. Yeah. The one thing I mentioned in my non-spoilers portion, when Frank was introduced, and I think this is where I was just kind of like off center a little bit, it was just, I get that there was this, they were jumping 3 years to 3 years to 3 years, but that initial thing where I wasn't sure if I could bridge this, like, am I supposed to trust Frank yet at this point? And then it was just, they jumped to them being in bed together, and I was like, okay, I don't know, like, am I supposed to trust him? Because when Frank was like, oh, take a shower, I'm like, okay, is he going to get a gun? But I haven't played the game, so I didn't know the fallout of what was going to happen here. I had that Walking Dead mindset, like, okay, this guy's up to something, this is weird. So, again, that little bit of rush notion there, once we get through that, then I loved it how we just got them like bickering and this compassion and just where it led to this conclusion, because it was very sad at the end. And I was telling Madison as she's watching, I'm like, oh, he's gonna kill himself too. He's drinking the wine as well. He put it in the bottle, and sure enough, that's what happened. I mean, I couldn't see it any other way for his character. I feel like that's just in a world like this, that is the best way you could go out peacefully with your loved one going to sleep. I mean, holy crap.
They were attacked once. They had a pretty good life, it seems.
Yeah, those guys got fucked up.
Oh yeah, I love that they like
Home
tease,
Alone
like,
them. My gosh.
yeah, this is what would happen to Kevin if like later on if he was in the pandemic. But like that's why I love they keep teasing the fence, and then when they get to it, like it is a big action shot, but you just start with Bill, he's in the rain shooting, and then you just cut to guys rolling on the ground on fire, getting electrocuted. Like this guy's fucking like Batman, but he has a kill rule. Like he's just like has like all this fence is like the most like thank goodness they didn't like have to go up against us in 2 towers, because like they needed this for the orcs. Like this fence was fucking everything you needed.
Keep the gas running. It'll kill them off. Like
Yeah.
totally calm about it.
Yeah.
I think those thieves are a little bit lesser than some Orokai, though. I will say. I feel like the Orokai would have
Probably
just
say mindset
fucking
though,
piled
though.
right
Brain
over.
power.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Bring
You-
the
they
bolt
just-
cutters.
They just do that bomber one and stuff. But yeah, no, that was good. But yeah, if you think about it, again, that was their only interaction. And I thought that was maybe a bit on the nose that Joel's like, hey, some people are going to come, and then they did it right away. I wish they did it like a little earlier in the episode. It was literally Joel just like kind of introducing it, saying like, hey, people might do something. And then literally,
It's just Joel himself going with the bolt cutters.
there is! I have the codes!
Got any weak points in here?
Yeah, he's just sus and everything. But that's a scene that I love, them having dinner and stuff like that. I love that we got to see Tess again. So I feel like
Yeah.
we're actually going to see Tess, because I feel like they might do this a few more times in the show. I'm not saying like a full episode again. I don't think they'll do that, except for that's been confirmed. They're going to do that with Ellie, that she's going to get an episode like this because it's based off some DLC. But I think you'll get maybe other moments of Tess with another character that's important, or vice versa. Same thing of like even with his brother. You know, I could see them doing a scene of the 3 of them together. And also, a big shout out to, obviously sad, the actress that played her in the video game, Annie Wershing, passed away today. So you go look on the page, a bunch of people share it. She's a GoFundMe for her children, but a big shout out to her, because bad timing and all, and fuck
Yeah, she was
Canada.
like 45 years old. Very very
Terrible. So yeah, but so that's what it was with Tess being there. I liked that, and I liked them showing. I like that Joel's in the episode, but he's not like in it, like he's there. It's like a good guideline of why we're there. But yeah, I really like that, how Frank is just desperately wanting to connect with other people, as far as just some other connection, and Bill's just all like, no, I'm not.
He wants
like,
to build a little town.
yeah, he's nothing. Like, even in his note to Joel, I love when he's like, you're not my friend or anything. Like, I don't really like you, but I like that there was a kinship there, and I liked the gun, how he just kept what was the
Cocking it
expression?
or
Yeah,
whatever.
I don't think it's cock. Is cocking it the
Pull the
slang
pin
version?
back.
Whatever.
That's what he did.
Pull the barrel back. I think it's pull the barrel.
Pull the pin back.
He's cocking it. Let's go
Either
with
way,
it.
he keeps putting the gun up and down. He puts it down. He puts it in his pants. Like, I like that. As like he's just so unsure about it. And Joel's like, no, I'd be the same way. So all that stuff was done great,
Yeah.
as far as interweaving our main characters in the story.
They had a great like mutual respect amongst each
Mm-hmm.
other. Like that's where Joel's like, I get it. Like I would have probably been doing the same thing. And then even in his note later on, I mean, Bill told him right then and there. It's like, I respect you, even though I don't like you. That was a funny little note too, with the he's
Yeah.
he threw in there.
That was good.
Great reading by Belle Ramsey in that. That's fantastic. Yeah.
And like again, like this episode was more focused on Bill and Frank for sure, but like man, the moments between her and Pedro throughout like the episode, it wasn't too much, but especially in like the earlier portions, then I guess what happens later on in the episode, man, just so stellar. I am totally grown to just appreciate Bella Ramsey playing the character of Ellie, because again, I've only got like probably halfway through that first game, but I see Ellie in her so much now. We're just like the one-liners, and I don't know if like Joel just explains something to her and she's like, well, that's kind of stupid. Just like, I don't know, like the way that she just seems like a child that's at that age, 14 or whatever she's supposed to be. And
The car
also
scene was great. That's why I think she was at
Yeah.
her best there. Like she
And-
like it was. Whew, yeah.
on that note, I just love seeing this perspective of like a post-apocalyptic perspective, right? Because she's never been on a plane, so when she sees the plane, it's like, what? You've been on that? Like, he's like, yeah, it's terrible. $12 for a sandwich. You're cramming over people. He's like, dude, you went to like, you were in the sky. Like, that's just amazing to me. And then obviously later on when she was in the car and it was like a spaceship to her, it just, I really appreciate the perspective, because I feel like it's easy to forget that. You know, I mean, I've been on planes, but like if I grew up in a pandemic setting like that, there would be young ones that have just never experienced like that sort of element to it. And I'm sure it's the same in the games. I'm sure she makes comments like that too. But
lots of their dialogue in the best way feels like the games, because she's always like, "Oh, you did that," or like you said, like, "Oh," and they brought back the "What's in there? Anything bad?" Just
that
you,"
was funny. Yeah,
it's funny every time. Yeah, it's funny how they just like this show out of all game adaptations is the best at making that like side game dialogue actually work. And I think that's a tribute probably to the actors, but I feel like we've seen that before and it just comes off as like cheesy, or it just doesn't fit the show or movie, whatever it is. Like, oh, okay, I like that you're tributing the game, but this doesn't work here. This just feels like that back and forth they have in video games, and all type of video games are just character speaking while you're looking around. It just works. So they're doing a great job.
I think a big part of that, honestly, is just the format of TV show. Like, that's the thing when you have a movie and you're trying to throw like things like that in every 5 minutes or something like that, it becomes kind of over the top. But when you can really intersperse an episode, when you get like 2 or 3 of those moments in an hour or less, like I don't know, it feels less jarring. But I really like we get like a little exposition moment of Joel kind of explaining what happened, or at least his perspective, which is, not certain information by any means. But I like that. Once again, like, just exposition, but they do it so well, and they weave it so naturally into what the characters are doing in that moment, and that would be like a perfect time to explain it when they're just on some random dirt road and there's no action, no zombies, no enemies around. Like, it's just a perfect down moment for her to ask a question like that. So I really liked that part of it. And then also to kind of touch on something too, like I love the way they transitioned. I mean, one, they did, like, as Taylor mentioned, a lot of time jumps in this, but it never felt weird to me. That can be a thing I feel like we've talked about many movie reviews where they do the 5 years later, whatever, 10 years, 50, whatever
it's
it is.
All the rage.
It's like sometimes really poorly done and you're not ready for it. In this, they did like 4 or 5 times this episode, and it always felt good. But also transitioning into that flashback sequence too, of them coming across just essentially the pile of bodies and the camera dropping down low to the ground, seeing a little bit of the fabric, and then that like transitioning to the woman who's wearing that. Like, that's a really like just stellar transition. And then even the ending of the episode 2 with the car driving off and the camera just slowly pulling out back through the window, and you're like, are we going to see them or not? But no, they just cut it there, and you can see his like picture. The names confuse me. I think Frank painted of Bill, like one of the portraits he did is up on the wall. So just like beautiful framing and camera work overall in this thing. And the transitions make I don't know, like an hour passes in the show and I'm like, fuck, I just want the next episode right now. And that's such a testament for a story that I'm not attached to, but I'm like already so invested in it.
That last shot, you're going to see that on tons of people's phone wallpapers. You're going to see that when people talk like, what episode made you cry the most? You're just going to see a shot. But that's the good thing is, like, you know what it is, right? Because just that little thing of, we left the window open, we didn't want to stink, but please don't come up because it's not going to look good. And it's just like such a little note, and I love. And back to that, like with the note, the thing that, well, I guess I should say with the transition, it sucks because opens up depressing because it transitions on that shirt, and the shirt belongs to that mom with the baby. So you know that they didn't make it. You know they just got taken to, Joel explained that if they didn't have room, they just took you to somewhere else, but the somewhere else was to just execute you. Because
side of the road, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's what happened, the end result there. So, and honestly, I guess we didn't touch upon that. That was a great opening of him just going to Home Depot, like just hitting up all these spots. Like obviously he's been preparing this for his whole life, but he's doing everything. He's getting the gas tanks, everything like that. So that was good. But I thought which was a good touch and something that obviously is not in the game, in that note when he's talking about how alike they are and like, oh, take whatever you want to protect Tess. I feel like that's going to add even more pressure on Joel, because it's like you have the complete opposite where this guy, Bill, got the perfect ending with Frank. They literally got to die peaceful in their bed together, where you had his, lover get killed in a terrible way and stuff like that, right? So it's just like I feel like he's gonna
Kissing a
weight,
zombie as her fading breath.
hopefully he didn't see that part, but he's gonna feel even the weight of it. Like he's seen someone else do it. He's seen someone else have like a relatively good life and a good ending, and he failed at that. He let that down and stuff like that. So at the non-spoilers, when I talk about like the things that are needed in this episode, I think that's stuff that will go towards Joel's arc in the future of like just not wanting to be a fail again. Because a bad 24 hours lost Tess, and even if he's not close with Bill, Bill's still an ally, right? So Bill and Frank are gone, so not going good for Joel right now. So
and like Pedro's portrayal of Joel just being able to like hold back those emotions has been like so good, and it's not so much like he's just not showing the emotion. Like you can tell that he's like bottling it up. It just goes to show how good of an actor he is. And then when he's just like stay here, and he just like goes outside, get a quick breath of fresh air, and then just like the tears hit him quick. Just those little moments of, again, like it's not even like weakness, it's just like his humanity is like slipping through his like tough rugged exterior he's trying to put up and cast himself. But yeah, that was definitely, because I don't know, in my mind I did not know like what she read at first. She just like didn't want to keep reading. That's like, oh, of course it's about Tess. And then it got me even more.
Dylan, actually this is for all of you guys. But I just...
But start with Dylan. So
started with Dylan.
I'm starting with Dylan.
So most importantly, me.
Yeah,
but
Dylan's opinion
also
matters the
Travis
most.
and Kirklin
Yeah.
want to.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
me
now
feel
when we
left
got... It didn't clue in before. When we got like Joel specifically saying September 23rd, 2003, that's when it really kind of clicked. And I thought, okay, I just wanted to take a quick look and like look up like significance about that date. Now in this timeline... we're looking at a world where they would have had Lord of the Rings Fellowship, Two Towers, Return of the King released like
December.
after December of
So they never
2003.
got the trilogy.
So they got the trailers, but they never would have got to see that epic conclusion to the trilogy.
That
At
is
Well, I
some
don't wanna
studio in LA, they have super cut of it without all the effects done.
that's next
goal
week's
for next
episode.
season.
Yeah, there's a solo episode of just people trying to get the Peter Jackson.
The long
Jill's like,
tapes.
Ellie, we're taking a detour.
Yeah, I know
Go to
you're
Peter
important and
Jackson's
all,
house.
but this was Tess' last wish to see Return the King and stuff like that. Well, you know, like I joke about that all the time, Emily, but you know, one of my biggest first world fears is just like Christian Bale's coming back as Batman, and I'm like 60 and I don't make it. You know, like it's one of those like there's gonna be, but it's fun.
He's
Like,
coming
we don't-
back, but dude, he's older than you. Come on.
What? But he's gonna outlive me. But like,
It's the Michael Keaton effect.
no, but I
Yeah,
just
fair
mean like
enough.
it's just funny. But we will all be in that situation where at some point there'll be a movie, TV show, or game that we're looking forward to, and we'll never get. And there's definitely more things important in life. But like I've always thought about that. Like there's people that like saw Infinity War and couldn't wait for Endgame and didn't make it. So you know, again, enjoy all the little things you have in life. Don't take them for granted, you know, and stuff like that. So what I want to mention, because Kirk, you said that I what bugged me, which is it's fine, but like the stay here from Joel twice, he did that in situations that I did not understand. When they're going to the gas station, he's like, stay here. Ellie doesn't listen. She goes in with him, and then at the house when he doesn't know what's going on, Bill and Frank are around. He's like, stay here. It's just like in two situations where this is high, come on, you have to protect. He's telling her just to stay alone. And I get it, they want Pedro to be by himself, but I was like, why would he be asking her to stay alone in these moments? Like she should be everywhere with him right now, you know?
That is fair, because it definitely crossed my mind where I'm like, okay, in a situation that Bill is alive, like if he just came downstairs and Ellie's standing there, someone
the
that he's
bite.
like never seen before, like she could just,
She's like
could just get
examining
shot
her
right there.
arm.
Frank!
It could have gone very wrong
Yeah.
there, but you know, she was already
So-
deceased.
Yeah, and that was my nostrils. That was my only minor con where each time he did it, and he did it at the end. But then I was like, okay, I guess he has the lock and they're dead, so it's fine. But I laughed every time. He's like, you stay here now and stuff like that. It's like, okay, you know. So, where do we want to go next?
Well, I mean, maybe we should talk about that gas station scene, because
Yeah.
I think that's kind of telling of Ellie's character a bit. One, I mean, Joel ditches his weapon. He's like, we don't have any ammo for this thing. But I feel like you hold on to your weapon in the instance that you find ammo, right?
You can still use it too as an object.
Even just intimidation, like
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah.
knows that you don't have bullets in it, right? So
yeah.
That was
maybe
a
they're
very-
a target though. Maybe that's the mindset.
I don't know. Maybe, I guess, I mean, he did leave it in his stash, so maybe he's like, when I find ammo, I'll come back for this thing. But I don't know. Just felt like that was a weird decision. But more interestingly, when Ellie goes into that creepy basement, she finds some tampons, so good for her. She's going to
Good for
need
her,
those. She
yeah.
found something of
Good
use
find.
tucked away in like the basement for some reason. But yeah, and then she finds just like a infected. How long do you think that zombie has been there for?
depends when that roof caved in, right? Because it's
Yeah.
just like because he didn't look like he was one that's been there for 20 years.
I assumed they still need to like feed on things
Yeah,
to
that's what I
stay
was gonna
alive,
ask.
though.
Yeah.
So that was kind of an interesting realization, I guess. Because I mean, I don't know. I
They
guess
do, because remember in episode 2 when they go in there, Joel and Tess check the ground, it's all dry, and they're like, okay, it's safe, because that meant like they had dried
Yeah.
up those things. So it was a recent roof or floor breakage.
Probably a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But then, but it seemed like everything was dusty and there was like rubble over the thing. But it didn't seem like someone was trying to cover up that entrance to that thing. Maybe there's another entrance to that basement. I don't know. But anyway, no, I thought that was a pretty interesting and maybe kind of surprising thing for me. That I mean, she's played with her knife before, so we know she likes that. But I felt like the leap from that to like viciously stabbing this thing in the head, which is the first one she's killed to this point.
Yeah,
Right?
Maybe.
I wouldn't know.
We'll find out.
Yeah, I don't know. How did you guys feel about that? Did that seem like too dark for you, or I mean, I guess it's just like an evil thing, but still, it did not. She did not need to do that in any way.
I mean, yeah, like if I feel like in the moment, like why not just leave it, in one of the situations? But like maybe she's just had so much hate for it, and she's never been able to like really, like stab at her or something. Like maybe it's taken someone that she cares about. Again, I'm limited in knowledge because I haven't played through the game, so I don't know who she's lost in the pandemic or anything like that. But yeah, it definitely seemed like it's not just this one zombie, like it's the threat of the entire infected that she just absolutely hates, and gets this moment to just really, it's like you're just punching like a punching bag, right? Like get some anger out. But yeah, it was going a little bit too far when she's just like cutting it open, and then you got the little like fungi coming out of his,
yeah.
his
Right
head.
during
All the
dinner time.
detail, it looked good. I was grossed out for sure, but yeah, I'm curious to see, because I imagine that's gonna come back where there's a situation that she doesn't have to engage, and now she's strapped. She's got a full on
Yeah, that's
Beretta
true.
9 or whatever the hell she grabbed from Bill. So I imagine she'll be popping that off when Joel doesn't want her to. But so yeah, no, I definitely caught on to something underlining more so than just her wanting to carve her initials on this infected forehead. Ellie was here. Can you imagine?
Grease them alive. Yeah. It's interesting. I'm trying to figure out how to walk this tightrope where Ellie as a character progressively gets this way, but this is, I think it's an interesting state for Neil Druckmann to be, and there's other people that are writing the show and whatnot, but he's in a state where he kind of knows where the Ellie character goes, and I feel like he's backlogging some more stuff to get us to that point, because I think to me in the first game Ellie doesn't really act, she acts completely like this, but we had this in episode 1 where Pedro's beating up that guy and she was like all like into, like she was like watching the violence, and not, I wouldn't say enjoying it, but she was intrigued by it. And then we got this, so I feel like they're adding in like later character traits to Ellie now just to make it seem like not such a big jump, but the games always have time jumps, as you saw today. So I'm curious what they're doing. I like what they're doing because it fits to kind of where we end up in certain situations, but it's just in the first. I'm surprised that I was already surprised episode 1 when she was like getting excited by that guy getting beat up. So I'm kind of surprised we're doing it now. But again, I think it's just maybe more character building. So it's I enjoyed it at least because I like aspects of things that happen later on if I can be as cagey as possible. So.
Could be one of those things too where I feel like video game pace is so much slower than movie pace would be extremely fast. That's like the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And then TV's pace is like more, quicker than what the video game would be. Because I'm not looking for collectibles watching an HBO show,
Well, and it's one of those things too. Like again, I'm gonna be a broken record, but this show's like, imagine like this being a 2-hour, 2.5 hour movie and stuff like that.
Ugh.
This episode wouldn't even exist, and that's why I've
No.
said like majority. I think there's a few small percentage, but majority of these shows or games need to be shows like this shows. And like we got God of War coming to Amazon, we got Fallout, which man, I hope Fallout like hits this levels of being this good. I don't know if it will because it's a great team, but then they just announced Tomb Raider is going to Amazon. Like this is the way to go because you can take these moments and the game has so much to cover. And that's just all I thought about tonight was like, man, the 2 hour, even when they just got in the car and stuff like that, like the 2 hour version of this movie is just would have been awful. And they were trying to make it at one point with a bunch of actors, but I'm glad it failed here. So
Yeah.
Taylor, you got anything to say on Ellie's little hunting expedition there?
Yeah, I totally just I think she's very, very brave, but I can't fathom being in Apocalypse, and having seen some of the things you've seen with Tess already getting killed off, but knowing that, okay, this is like 10 feet below, it's pitch black, and you're just gonna jump down there. Like, it's so bold, especially with no concrete way of getting up. When they showed like the trash can, she flipped it up, I thought, okay, there's gonna be some kind of like high tense moment where someone's gonna run
Pulling a
at her.
Marv.
Yeah,
And he builds in Home Alone. That's what
exactly. Just very
Yeah,
bold.
going up.
That's fair. Maybe if they like,
Yeah.
maybe if they like showcased her seeing like the tampons first and been like, okay, I need those. Like that's like precious gold in this climate, right? So maybe that would have been a lot more palatable. Because yeah, as soon as she dropped, Shay and I were both like, come on, like really, like fuck off.
I mean, she is a kid,
okay.
right?
And she's like,
Little bit.
yeah, I guess for me it didn't bug me because like I just feel like she's like a kid, but she's like a daring kid. Like they've shown so far that she wants to do these things, and she's
She
all
also
pissy.
feels a bit invincible, right? Which I think
Yes.
Joel really
100%.
reinforces at the end of this episode that like, yeah, don't think that way. And he says before, like, doesn't matter if they can bite you and you're okay to that, but if they rip your face apart or whatever, this is paraphrasing, of course, but essentially that kind of thing. But I think she does still feel a bit invincible, and obviously she hasn't had that wake up moment yet, but I'm sure
Yeah.
it's coming at some point here.
I used to feel that way. I'm young and I'm never gonna die.
Exactly. And
Then you sleep.
And now
wrong,
you're the old man.
and you're
Look at
you're
that.
in pain for 2 weeks. Yeah.
then you work a 9 to 5. You're like, oh my god, I can't even survive this.
Ellie's never gonna have to do that.
No. Let's take our second ad break, and then we'll be right back. And we're back. So
One last thing I forgot to mention about Tess on this episode was obviously we got a flashback of her just being friendly with Frank and Bill and just hanging out. It was nice to see just a different side of that character. Because, as I mentioned earlier, like I really like the actress that's playing her. Should have the name in front of me, but I do not. But I think she's really good because at first it's like, okay, she can play this rugged, grumpy lady like pretty well. But now seeing this side where like there was moments where she wasn't always like that. And just seeing them bounce off other characters. Those are the flashbacks I'm hoping that we keep getting going forward. Like you mentioned, Travis, we'll probably be seeing more of her in flashbacks going forward. And I hope that there is situations where she is bouncing off of not only Joel, but also Tommy and other survivors. Because after seeing these moments, like, oh, I'm more sad that she's gone now because this is just maybe more possible juice that I could get out of that lemon or something that I won't be able to anymore. But thanks to flashbacks, it's like I'm getting my artificial concentrate or something. I'm getting some good test moments. And yeah, I forgot to mention that earlier, so I want to throw it out.
it helps fills it out too if you're where you watch the show too now, because from that perspective you get other scenes and stuff like
true.
that. So and yeah, just makes her more human. So I agree, and like I said, I think I'm not saying it's gonna be a bunch, but I would think at least one more time we'll see her, at least. Bill not so much, but her, I think you'll get something. So yeah.
I just kind of have some random smaller things to mention here, but I like the detail that I guess Frank is doing all these paintings, and we saw obviously that one in the bedroom, but there's just all over the place. He's done tons of paintings over the years. He got his like a studio there where he has a bunch of awesome artwork in there, and just the last one that we see him doing when he's like decaying, it's like one of his last days, and it's just not a very good painting. Like you could just it's a good way to show like how he's progressed, and like even the way he can like barely hold it. Obviously, he can't like walk around on his own and stuff like that. So I like that. Go ahead.
Oh, I also like too when Bill's like, well, we can maybe find a doctor and something, or he's like they didn't even have a cure for this in the real world, like before all this. I think they're gonna have one now. So I like that type of very easily shutting him down with logic. But yeah, the painting idea was great, because at first I was like, what's he doing with this painting? I'm like, oh, okay, I figured it out at first. But I was like, oh, this is very abstract and stuff.
Picasso.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it still looks cool though. I'd still take it. Like, honey, look at this,
Is that Bill?
Yeah.
I think Travis kind of mentioned this, but just the set that they built for, or at least I guess the set dressing of this neighborhood that they did, getting all the fences up. At one point they piled a bunch of cars, and just the different buildings and all that. We only go inside one of the building, but you can see that they have the kind of boutique setup in the other one. And I love the level of detail that they've gone through in this show to create these environments, and just nothing feels fake and CG. Like they really just went through, even just the level of like throwing scuff marks on this house for these different time periods, whether 3, 10, 15 years, whatever we're seeing, how it just like is a pretty stellar house when we first see it, obviously, and then by the end it's just like scraped and bruised and all this kind of stuff. Just the weather from over the years. So I don't know, just I loved that whole set piece, I guess, of that little neighborhood that we spend most of this episode in.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm glad you mentioned that because you reminded me of just the level of detail amongst like the set, but just going back to those characters as well. Like shout out to them for being able to like really show like each little like ache and pain that they've gotten throughout the years. Like they physically looked worn out, whether it's Bill or Frank. I mean, Frank was in a wheelchair by the end, but like just Bill walking a lot slower. You know, he's got a little bit of like a limp or whatnot to him now. Just great performance for all those like little subtle adjustments that he made. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the details for the sets because the set looked amazing. I'm like, man, this would be such a sweet situation. You got the whole neighborhood to yourself.
It's like Joel should go back when this is all done. You know, like I know there's dead bodies upstairs,
Good place
but like,
to live.
yeah, there's tons of stuff going on. You know,
I hope they go back to it because that's like a safe haven. I mean, I guess Raiders will eventually get there because there's no one like defending it anymore. The Generators will probably eventually.
Yeah, eventually, yeah.
But I also feel like you hear the rumors or you hear the stories of what happened there.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
That's
I'm not
fair.
fucking with that guy. He's got a full
that's true.
perimeter with like all sorts of traps with saws and explosions and electric fences. Like,
Yeah.
And I don't know. No,
spread.
no one's gonna know when he's died, right? Like I feel like
Right.
unless Ellie lets it slip, which would be the only way, mentions it in passing. Like I feel like Joel's never gonna mention that either because he would see that kind of information would
Yeah.
spread pretty quick in the world and people would go there. But
Those
Yeah.
crispy bodies are probably still on the fence too, so that's a deterrent right
yeah,
then
you
and
see
there.
that and you're like, oh, I'm out of here.
Yeah, if you own that house, you don't clean out those bodies. You leave them out there for tactics. You know, like look at
Yeah.
what could happen.
Yeah, you
if
put their
stuck
head
there.
on like on the spike, like a orb once
Yeah.
again, and just stick it
Yeah,
up.
lots of Lord of the Rings parallels with this episode and stuff like that. But yeah, no, and I even like that when he said, like, alluding to what we said, he's like, I don't want to feed you because if I feed you, you're just gonna go out there and tell a bunch of people, and the homeless are gonna think they're gonna have a meal here, just like Arby's. Like, well, Arby's, you didn't have free meals there and stuff. He's like, got you there, and then they went inside and had this nice little. And I liked very much that he was very kind of concerned the whole time, and Frank just he didn't botch the piano, but he tried his best and stuff like that. But I like that was like a bonding moment between the two because I wasn't sure how they were going to play it. I thought he was going to play it really nice and it was going to be like this thing where Bill's like, oh, like I haven't heard someone play like that since my mother. But no, it was Frank was trying his best and then Bill comes in there. But then the connection is Frank clearly figures out, okay, he's not singing about a girl and stuff like that. And that's their connection, right? So
I never heard the song
Considering-
before, so I wasn't sure if he was playing it well at first.
Me either,
and then,
actually.
And then Bill went in there. I was like, oh, this is actually
Considering
good.
he hasn't played a piano in probably at least 4 years, I think, based on the
That's
timeline
fair,
there.
yeah.
I think he did pretty damn good.
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to remember how to like read the sheet music and all that kind of thing, like it sounds like he knows the song, but he probably also hasn't heard the song in a few years. So I'm giving him credit. I think he did a great job.
Everyone that's 40 and over apparently knows this song because I didn't. Because then when she puts in the card, Joel's like, "Yeah, don't turn this off." This is
Yeah.
it's like
My dad has like 100 Linda Ronstadt records, so I'm
Oh,
sure
there
he
you go.
would know
Oh,
the
yeah.
song instantly. But I don't know if I've heard it before.
Yeah, I think if I have, it's in passing. But it was a fun little, and again, it's like a little piece of like Bill at the end there, of like some sort of Joel and him weren't friends, but it's like another sign of like, well, they're similar, right, and stuff like that. So
Yeah. And like just speaking on him being a little bit cautious of him. I mean, Taylor brought this up earlier, and at first you didn't know his name was Frank, so I was like, okay, this is extremely sus. So I feel like I would have been like Bill. I feel like Taylor would have just shot whoever's in the pit right away. Like, I don't trust you. Get out of here.
Fuck your Arby's.
Yeah, not quite
I'll
that
give you Arby's.
extreme,
You get what you
but
deserve.
I thought it was. I mean, because up until like the entire piano playing moment, like I was pretty sus of this Frank guy up until the. I mean, I knew of Bill and Frank, like just leading into this episode, I knew that there was going to be some sort of.
Could have been a different Frank, right?
It could have been, yeah. I guess you never know. So I was definitely sus of him, and I liked how it did take that moment of the piano where. Like when he was bringing him his food, Frank was like standing up, and like he just gave him such like a very sus look, and he just kept like staring at him for a couple seconds and didn't say anything. It was just really great subtle acting from Nick Offerman there that I believed he was very much on edge. Like he still had his gun with him wherever he was going. He wasn't as much when he was on edge with Pedro, but he's got something to protect at that point. So
Second he get laid though, he didn't care. He's like, I'm going up, I'm showering, I'm getting like that was the point where I was like, okay, I know that there's a connection here, but still like when he told him to go shower, I was like, you're leaving this guy down here all alone, like it's. But I bought into because the rest
hey
of the
man,
episode
if you're
was
horny,
great,
like come on.
I understood.
It's
I
been
understood the
years.
connection, but
Well, yeah, this
glad
was
it
3
worked out
years,
that way.
right? since like the town was evacuated.
It was 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was alone and he had everything figured out. Which even I thought was risky. Like I feel like he moved very quick. Like everyone leaves the town and like he went out like for like half an hour after one left.
It's
Like
like
I
you
would have
fake
waited.
sick and your parents go to work. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, party time. Let's
I was
go.
like, I would have waited a little bit, but it all worked out and stuff like that. So, and I wasn't sure what they were doing, the changes of the game. I was like, oh, is he going to take a boat somewhere? Because when he had the boat, also it was just to transport stuff around. But I was like, maybe we're going to major shift here, and he's just like going to fucking boat somewhere, and Joel and Ellie got a boat to him. But no, just to get around and worked out. So.
Okay, random logistical question. What's going on with this hole that he dug? Like, did he just have a bunch of holes? Was it like
think
a
so,
moat
yeah.
or something like that?
Yeah, I think just traps
Moat
all
would
over
have
the
been a
place.
good idea.
And Frank just got very unlucky in that he walked specifically into.
Well,
one.
probably leaves covered over it or whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's how I took it. It's just a trap. So like in the future, if people are walking up, they get caught like that. Same thing in that battle. There's
Yeah.
probably a couple guys stuck in the holes.
I guess I'm just
Still in
wondering like
there.
how many holes there
still
truly
there.
was. I
just
don't
the
know.
one.
Well, and you have nothing
Yeah.
but time, Dylan. You're probably gonna dig a lot of holes, right?
It's true. I
And
feel
then-
like I could have climbed out of that hole. That was not too deep of a hole.
He
I
had
can't
for
believe he
2
didn't
days.
like roll his ankle or something. That's the first
Yeah.
like
That
anytime there's a
would-
hole like
yeah.
that, especially if you're not expecting it, just the way that you would fall. I feel like ugh.
That's a good point.
dangerous.
That's a good point.
But
I
maybe
feel
you
like
could
Bill
get-
might have threw in some like spiky sticks or something in there.
Oh
He
yeah,
seemed like a
he hadn't made
savage.
those yet. He hadn't made those yet. It
Yeah.
takes some time. He's gonna make those from the bones of those guys that invaded the.
Oh my god.
What a way to, you know what? I'm sure someone's done that, but I'm taking that idea. Like, what a way to go out. You die by spikes, but the spikes are like some other dude's bones. Like, some bones are killing you.
It's
you
dipped
know?
in shit too, so you
pretty
get
bad.
like
What the
the-
I don't know if that's
Yeah.
necessary.
That
You'll be
gives
dead.
the
And
after effect, like
cordyceps or
damage
whatever
over
they're
time.
Yeah, if you're still alive, you're not gonna like it and stuff like that. I have to say this. It's so funny when because for this show, the girls go in our bedroom, they watch Bluey and stuff like that. Logan came and got a drink, and she's watching. She's like, "Oh, you're watching this movie again?" And then she just went back to the room. It's so funny. Like it's like a new episode, but she's just like such for a 2-year-old, such like
That's
or a
hilarious.
3-year-old, just a little character. But it's just like, what's it to you? What's it? She
Just
says that.
judging you, like,
Well, she
heavily.
says that.
Yeah.
Well, her and Gwen watch like the same Bluey episode for the 800th time.
Yeah,
and
what
stuff
did you
like
say? Were you like, oh, that episode of Bluey again?
Bluey again, eh? Ugh,
Yeah,
grow up.
no, I was like, you know what? Everyone, come out here. You're watching Last of Us.
Time you learn.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. So we saw him making the holes and covering them in the fake grass montage. There you go. But he was doing a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
stuff. I didn't even think about that
I
because I
missed
remember him
that, actually.
twisting stuff. So yeah, great song choice for the montage.
Definitely.
I have to say before I forget that I think my two favorite scenes. I think obviously like, everyone's is like I like the dinner table, the reveal of okay he drank it, but I was like Taylor, okay, I think we're going this route because it's like it's a I'm not sure don't anybody worry and stuff like that, but it's just like I think Emily and I have those conversations, and I think every couple does like who should die first, and I'm always like man I just hope we just die together because that's just we've had that conversation. I hope it's just easier that way because it's just like. Either way, it's tough. Like when you are with someone, especially at that point, like when you are with someone for such a long time, your life changes. Like for myself, now I'm 29. So I was 19 when I met Emily. It's like still like almost half my life at that point. Like I've been with Emily. I guess 9 years still, but still eventually will be the point. And you do think, and this is different because this is a pandemic. So me and Emily are working stuff like this. This is where you just would just be together forever. How long they were together? 20 years, I guess, because 2003 to 2023. So 20 years. It's pretty much just been them together. So I bought that, and the acting is just superb from Nick Offerman. But the one review I really liked was the strawberries. Really like that because.
Yeah.
Same when you're because I'm in the same mindset of I'm thinking okay eventually like the game Frank and him because they already teased they're not getting along and when he trades something with Tess I'm like oh no is this the start of the downfall because
Which
they're-
gun?
yeah they're being very when Tess and her are talking like they're being very cagey and he's like say something over the radio so he doesn't know so I'm like oh is he working on his way to get out of here like the game like he's gonna bust out but no these strawberries and just a very nice tender scene where you know he's like it's a gun he's like, oh just one of the little ones but like it didn't matter once he saw the strawberries and just that idea of
Yeah.
seeing growth again, something that you probably thought you'd never experience again as like a gift, really touching moment. I think that's always the moment I'm going to come back to. I love the running too when he Offerman like Bill's just having a really tough time and he's like I'm just getting old, I can't do this anymore. But the strawberries that moment out of the whole episode's going to stick with me I think as far as just like a touching moment that one like choked me up a little. It was yeah. I liked
Well, like even earlier on when Bill was on his own, when he grew his first carrots, like you got to kind of see some like pride in himself of like the first time he kind of like grew something. Well, he's probably done that many times before, but just like during the pandemic, like okay, I'm gonna be able to make my I don't know, make myself live by growing carrots or whatnot, and then
Yeah.
hear someone in secret made. I mean, say what you will about carrots. I love carrots, but strawberries, come on, those are way better than carrots. So like, just someone that he really cares about doing that for him. In secret, like he didn't care that he lost the gun. It probably wouldn't have cared if he lost his favorite gun. Like that was just such a nice, touching moment. And again, it just brought those two together for sure. Because I can't remember if there was a time jump from when they were arguing to that point or whatnot. But it just, they had some rocky days. And Frank even said that when they're like on their deathbeds. Like, I've had plenty of terrible days, and I've had plenty of terrible days with you. But like, I mean, everybody does, highs and lows. So I definitely love that scene with the strawberries for sure. And I wanted to say too, before I forget, I think the score overall really just lifted this episode so much more than it already. I mean, it was such a stellar episode, but having those just the very emotional like music coming in when like Frank is explaining to Bill that like this is his last day and they're gonna do this, and Bill's just in so much denial, and it's just such a heavy situation, to like imagine the person that you lived your whole life with just telling you that like, no, this is my last day on like living, like this is just, I wouldn't be able to accept that. So that was just really, really touching. And I think just all of the little emotions were swelling. Then you had those little music moments, like when he's just walking, it was, I think it was like a street shot or something. Bill was just like pushing Frank somewhere in the wheelchair, and you had the music coming in. It was just, it was so beautiful. So big ugly cry from me.
Big question I have to ask Taylor and Dylan, because Kirklin said this. Are you picking strawberries or carrots?
Yeah, that was an interesting comment when Kirkland made that. I mean, I think
I might
carrots
judge
are.
you guys. I thought it was like very clear. Just strawberries better than.
Well, I mean,
carrots.
if I'm picking one out of the ground and putting it in my mouth, like, yeah, strawberry all day. Like that will be a better experience. But I feel like a carrot is much more versatile.
Okay.
Might get you farther.
So if I can only have one for the rest of my
Yeah.
life, I would go carrot over strawberry.
Okay.
Taylor.
Yeah. Also, strawberries are expensive as fuck, and carrots are not. So that's a big difference. Or I don't buy strawberries anymore because, oh my god, that's crazy.
fair.
I mean, if it's the apocalypse and I get strawberries, then you said it, Dylan, the higher trade value. I could probably get a couple guns with strawberries.
I wasn't talking about trade value for like currency on these strawberries and carrots. Just what do you prefer?
I would prefer strawberries, but I mean, if I was to be living for a longer period of time, like carrots are gonna allow my body to sustain.
The doomsday prepper in Taylor.
I'm with you, Kirkland. I'm taking.
They're called
strawberries.
survivalists, Dylan. That's what Bill said.
I'm taking the strawberries, because who knows how long I'm gonna live. I'm gonna enjoy it while I'm there, and definitely
They got sugar in there. It's like a candy.
It's like
Maybe they would have lived longer if they had carrots. Though.
I was gonna say it's the closest I may get to candy. So I'm definitely taking that. You make jam too for anything you might have. Don't eat the grain.
That's true.
Make carrot jam, I'm sure.
Oh fuck, that sounds disgusting.
You guys come over. I made some carrot jam.
Yeah, I don't like that Bill guy test. Served us that fucking carrot jam.
All they have is carrots. Carrot bread, carrot cake.
Fucking bunny rabbits over there. My god. Anything else?
I got nothing else.
Or are we ending on strawberry carrots? That's the way
I-
to end.
Well, I will say, like, I like that. Like, at first he's Joel's stressed about the battery and all that kind of stuff, but when he opens up the fridge, it's just all got all the ingredients, everything to kind of just like build the battery and all that kind of stuff. So I like that.
Very Walter White moment. He just prepped his own battery like that. I would have been fucked.
He made some
I'd have
meth
been
down
like,
there, too.
Yeah, I'd been
I don't
fucked
know.
too.
Oh yeah, I'm not built for apocalypses and so many. I can't even drive.
Too fragile.
Yeah.
Are you like Ellie, like seatbelt?
I think you could drive an apocalypse, Travis.
I
think
could
you'd be
drive.
good.
Yeah, I still can drive, but I just feel like I just like replacing a tire or stuff like that. Like I feel like once the internet goes down, I don't have any YouTube help videos, and I guarantee there's some old guy watching like, yeah, you fucking young generation, yeah, but I'd kick your ass and fucking strikers. So calm down. There.
Oh, take that, old man.
Taking all your strawberries.
Go eat your carrot jam.
Yeah.
I'll eat my strawberry jam.
When we get to some community, like one of you can stay, but you have to verse each other in Smash Bros. Melee. Well, fuck you, Billy the Puppet. You're going down. So, all right, let's end this episode. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be back next week with episode 4. Be very interested to see where we go this time, because I don't know. Sometimes the amount we get to a game point and we stay there for a very little point, or we get to this where in the game's very quick and we stay for a full hour and a half almost. So can't wait, but I think we're all going to be excited, and I trust them being very good. So we'll be back next week. Won't be boring.
Bye-bye.